The anime opens with the birth of a child, whose very first sight is his mother smiling down at him with overwhelming joy. What no one in the room realizes, especially the ecstatic parents, is that this newborn is no ordinary baby. He is a reincarnated soul, fully aware that he has lived an entire previous life and remembers every inconvenient detail of it. Inside his tiny body resides the mind of a grown adult. He thinks clearly, reasons logically, and immediately understands the situation. Unfortunately, he is still stuck in the body of an infant, which means no speaking, no walking, and no dramatic monologues about existential rebirth just yet. To add insult to injury, a status screen appears before him. A quick glance confirms his expectations. Every stat sits firmly at the bottom. Apparently, reincarnation does not come with a starter pack. Moments later, the king of the Mirror Empire enters, and the child nearly panics upon realizing that he has been reborn into royalty. The king names the newborn Noah, unknowingly assigning him a lifetime of responsibility before he could even lift his own head. Soon after, a loyal servant reports that Noah possesses an unusually strong affinity for water magic. Without hesitation, the king appoints him as the future head of Almeria, a district renowned for its abundant water resources and water magic users. This decision occurs while Noah is still young enough to consider blinking a major achievement. The king then orders Noah's stats to be displayed publicly throughout the palace. As expected, most of the values remain at the lowest tier, earning nods of approval from the onlookers. Then the water magic stat appears. At merely 1 minute old, Noah's rank already reaches SS. The room freezes, jaws drop, and common sense briefly evacuates the palace. Meanwhile, Noah checks his own stats and notices something completely different. The numbers do not match what everyone else sees, leaving him confused while the rest of the palace celebrates, and his father proudly lifts him higher, blissfully unaware of the complications ahead. 6 years pass, and Noah grows into a small boy. Despite his appearance, his maturity far exceeds his age, backed by memories from his previous life. The palace staff adore him, impressed by his intelligence and impeccable manners. One morning, as he eats breakfast with the grace of a seasoned noble, a maid informs him of the crown prince's arrival. The visitor is Albert Arart, a man widely regarded as a force to be reckoned with. Recognizing the significance of the visit, Noah ends his meal early and goes to greet him. The crown prince arrives alongside the fourth prince, and both immediately take note of Noah's flawless etiquette. They openly remark that he shows the makings of a future chancellor, a compliment Noah accepts calmly, while mentally noting that he still needs help reaching high shelves. Skipping unnecessary pleasantries, the crown prince presents his reason for visiting: a gift. A servant enters carrying a coffin-like container, his expression strained from both its weight and the oppressive energy it emits. The object radiates hostility, as though it actively resents being carried by someone weaker than itself. When the container opens, a sword is revealed, one that looks disturbingly pleased with the idea of consuming lives. The crown prince orders Noah to wield the blade. Though phrased politely, the command leaves no room for refusal. Noah senses the sword's bloodlust immediately, but steps forward regardless. His resolve wavers when he grips the hilt, yet he forces himself to lift it. His form is far from perfect, but he manages to wield the heavy weapon long enough to demonstrate control. Only then does the crown prince reveal the truth. The sword is cursed and has executed most of its previous wielders after deeming them unworthy. The fact that it spares Noah leads to a simple conclusion. His SS rank stat protects him. The weapon is called Leviathan, a sword infused with devastating water-based power capable of making the world tremble. After delivering this cheerful revelation, the crown prince and the fourth prince depart, leaving Noah alone with the unsettling realization that his elder brother knowingly allowed him to handle something that could have killed him instantly. Assessing his position carefully, Noah swallows his resentment and continues his day. Picking fights with powerful siblings rarely ends well. Later that day, one of Noah's maids requests leave. He immediately notices the tremor in her voice and asks what troubles her. She explains that a severe flood has destroyed her homeland, leaving her mother homeless. Out of desperation, she considers working in the red light district to earn money for her mother's survival. Noah rejects the idea without hesitation, and instead offers both the maid, Zoe, and her mother a home within the palace. He even arranges a new job for Zoe's mother. Learning of the flood's aftermath, Noah orders the purchase of all affected land to prevent bandits and exploitation. When a servant questions the funding, Noah calmly explains that he plans to sell the land gifted to him by his father to cover the cost. The following day, Noah travels to the region. The fourth prince warns him against using Leviathan, explaining that survival does not equal permission. The sword may tolerate him, but misuse could bring severe consequences. Upon arrival, Noah discovers that the locals receive barely edible food. Those in charge secretly skim ingredients for profit, turning relief efforts into a personal business. Noah's sense of justice ignites, and for the first time, rage overtakes him. He confronts the man responsible, who, unaware that the child before him is a prince, responds with arrogance. That ignorance seals his fate. Noah summons Leviathan and demands its power. The sword resists at first, but it senses unwavering resolve and submits. In a single decisive strike, Noah decapitates the corrupt official, sending terror through soldiers and peasants alike. Realization spreads quickly. They stand before royalty. Everyone kneels. Far away, news of Noah wielding the cursed sword reaches the crown prince. Instead of concern, amusement fills him. He laughs loudly, realizing that his younger brother may be far more useful and far more dangerous than he initially assumed. The second episode opens with a narrator introducing the capital city of the Mirror Empire. Beyond serving as the political heart of the empire, the city also functions as its financial nucleus. Over time, it has grown into the most prosperous city in the world, one that now falls directly under the jurisdiction of a young prince, Noah. By this point, Zoe has taken on additional responsibilities under Noah's command and is almost always by his side during his daily routine. Her diligence makes her invaluable to him, while the steady work allows her to support herself comfortably. On this particular day, the two head together to a grand hall to attend a performance they have been anticipating. The event is a singing performance by a young woman named Aleki. From the moment she begins to sing, Noah finds himself completely captivated. His jaw visibly drops as her voice fills the hall. While he can recognize that her technique still leaves room for refinement, having heard far more polished singers before, he can tell that Aleki sings from genuine passion rather than mere necessity. That sincerity alone sets her apart. Just as Noah and Zoe are enjoying the performance, three men abruptly barge into the hall without tickets, shattering the atmosphere. Without a hint of shame, they storm the stage and declare that Aleki will never be able to repay her parents' debt through singing alone. They crudely insist that she abandon her passion and sell her body instead. The words immediately sour Noah's mood. Not only are they cruel, but they also interrupt his moment of peace. He steps down toward the stage and calmly announces that demanding repayment of a parent's debt from their child is illegal under imperial law. The men, unaware of his identity, respond with arrogance, mocking him and telling him to run back to his mother. Noah feels no need to announce his status. Instead, he draws his cursed sword and incapacitates all three men in an instant, carefully ensuring they survive. Terrified both physically and emotionally, the men scramble out of the hall, shouting desperate threats that they will return. After restoring order, Noah approaches Aleki and offers to sponsor her singing career with a payment of 25 reins. The offer overwhelms her with joy. He then politely asks her to finish the song, explaining that he would like to hear how it ends. By sunset, Noah returns to his palace, only to find the same three men kneeling at the front gates. A servant explains that they have come to apologize. Noah immediately realizes they must have learned his identity. While he has no intention of punishing them further, he refuses to grant them an audience, stating that a prince cannot be met at will by commoners. Prince Henry, the fourth prince, overhears his decision and praises Noah's judgment, noting that granting such informal meetings would only diminish his authority. The two move somewhere private, where Noah explains that his refusal was deliberate. By leaving the men fearful rather than furious, they would be less likely to harass Aleki again. Prince Henry is stunned by Noah's insight, remarking that no one their age could think so strategically. He compares Noah to his peers, Frank and Gary, who are the same age but far less capable. Noah privately reflects that Frank and Gary are his half-brothers, born of a different mother. Shifting the conversation, Prince Henry admits that what impresses him most is Noah's mastery over the cursed blade Leviathan. Once a national treasure that no one could wield, it now obeys Noah completely. When Noah casually summons Leviathan out of thin air, Henry momentarily loses his composure. Noah explains that the sword can shrink itself and be hidden within a sleeve, one of its many functions. Prince Henry is left in genuine awe, convinced that Noah is truly exceptional. Together, they head toward a royal gathering. Along the way, they encounter the same men from the concert once more, bowing repeatedly in hopes of forgiveness. When one of them loses his temper, Noah suppresses him instantly using Leviathan's power, explaining to Henry that even small portions of the sword's strength allow him to do such things. At the party, Noah's entrance draws immediate attention. Despite his young age, his elegance and composure astonish the assembled nobles. This time, instead of concealing Leviathan, he openly wears it. When questioned, Noah announces the sword's name and reveals that it was a gift from the crown prince himself. The revelation excites the room, until one noble scoffs, claiming the blade must be a replica. Before Noah can respond, Leviathan erupts in fury, releasing a dark aura that grips everyone present by the throat. Panic spreads instantly. Noah calmly suppresses the sword and orders it to stand down, having sensed that it was enraged on his behalf. Rather than fear, the nobles are left even more impressed by how completely Noah has tamed the cursed weapon. Having proven his point, Noah spares the insulting noble without further incident. As introductions continue, one guest captures Noah's attention: Byron Allen and his daughter, Cindy. After only a brief exchange, Noah deduces that Cindy is not Byron's biological daughter, but a former slave. Rather than thinking less of Byron, Noah is impressed by her compassion in taking her in. Byron soon excuses himself, likely to avoid attracting jealousy from others for holding the prince's attention too long. As Byron departs, Noah senses something unusual about Cindy. Despite her timid demeanor, she displays a strange protectiveness toward Byron. When Noah releases a trace of Leviathan's power, her instincts sharpen rather than collapse into fear. The detail intrigues him, though he decides to investigate later. The following day, Noah strolls through the city when Prince Oliver encounters him in a carriage and invites him on a treasure hunt. They visit Cobalt Street, a place known for rare artifacts, many genuine, many counterfeit. During their search, Noah encounters a book possessed by the vengeful spirit of a wind sorcerer. He destroys the spirit with ease, greatly impressing Prince Oliver. A nearby merchant witnesses the feat and invites them inside, presenting a peculiar artifact that always returns to him no matter how often he discards it. Noah places it on his finger and discovers it can transform into armor. He decides to purchase it, but Prince Oliver insists on paying, offering it as a gift. The episode concludes with Noah returning to Alekes, singing Hull once more. When her performance is interrupted again by a disruptive guest, Noah intervenes. The owner apologizes, claiming such customers keep the business alive. In response, Noah calmly resolved the issue by buying the establishment outright. The third episode opened with Noah being meticulously prepared for the day by his attendants. Each maiden carried out her duties with unwavering professionalism, treating him not as a child, but as a prince in his own right, despite the fact that he was only 6 years old. Once he was ready, Noah was informed of an early morning visitor, Dead Marley, the Governor General of Holdjoy. Noah immediately understood that the visit concerned a serious official matter. Holdjoy was not under his direct jurisdiction, yet Marley's presence made sense. The Governor General had been born in Almeria, a fief governed by Noah himself. When all other avenues failed, it was only natural for Marley to seek the young prince's aid as a last resort. Noah wasted no time on formalities and instructed him to speak plainly. Marley explained that Holdjoy was a fertile region surrounded by major rivers, but frequently suffered from devastating floods. Managing such disasters was precisely why an official from Almeria, home to the Empire's water clan, had been appointed to govern the region. While Marley possessed the skills to mitigate the flooding, he admitted that his efforts had reached a standstill. Without financial backing, even his expertise was useless. Noah immediately objected, stating that the Imperial Crown had already ordered funds to be released. Marley clarified that the Home Ministry had been withholding the money. Upon hearing this, Noah acted without hesitation and went straight to confront the Minister of Finance, Maverick. Maverick, a man notorious for corruption, was more concerned with his lavish meals than the suffering of the people. Still, he remained outwardly composed, convinced he could deceive the young prince. He assumed Noah's age would work in his favor. When questioned about the missing funds, Maverick claimed that taxes had been forgiven after the previous flood, and that the people should now use that money to survive the current crisis. Noah immediately dismantled the excuse. He argued that taxes had not been forgiven at all, because the people had earned no profit after the last flood. Legally, the tax amount had simply been zero. Maverick was visibly shaken. He had expected the prince to accept the lie without question. In a final, desperate attempt, he claimed the funds were being reserved for the construction of a private villa for the king. Seeing through the deception, Noah prepared to charge Maverick with treason against the crown. Panic overtook the minister. He collapsed to his knees, begged for forgiveness, and immediately issued orders for funds to be released to Holdjoy. Shortly after Noah returned to the capital, a messenger informed him that the king had summoned him. Since the request came directly from a monarch, Noah presented himself without delay. The king began by praising Noah's decisive actions in Holdjoy, though what surprised Noah most was that the king already knew every detail. This led Noah to wonder just how far the king's intelligence network extended. The king explained that information was power, and that he kept watch over every corner of the empire. Any significant change reached him far sooner than most realized. He then shifted the conversation to Noah's mastery of the Leviathan sword, noting how remarkable it was given the weapon's violent history. The king introduced Noah to Damian Noble, widely regarded as the strongest swordsman in the empire, and appointed him as Noah's instructor. Damian requested permission to spar with the prince in order to gauge his abilities. The king granted his request. To Damian's shock, the duel ended almost instantly. Noah defeated him with ease, as the Leviathan sword transferred the accumulated techniques of its former wielders directly to him. Admitting defeat, Damian reported that while Noah's physical strength and speed were those of a child, his technique rivaled that of a veteran knight. He concluded that he had nothing left to teach the prince. Impressed, the king appointed Noah as the chief judge of the empire's annual knight selection examination. The event allowed any swordsman from any region to compete, and was one of the empire's most celebrated traditions. Victors were granted knighthood and promoted rapidly within the military due to their proven skill. Noah's first decree was that the regional preliminary rounds would also be held in the capital, under his direct supervision. He did not trust regional judges, believing their decisions could be arbitrary or biased. He feared that a truly talented individual might be eliminated before ever reaching him, and he refused to allow such waste. Later, while speaking with Zoe in his mansion, she mentioned that a knight from her village also wished to compete. However, traveling to the capital every year was prohibitively expensive. This revelation made Noah realize that many capable candidates were being excluded simply due to financial hardship. Determined to remove this barrier, Noah summoned his servant Dylan and ordered that all competitors, regardless of origin, would have their travel, lodging, and basic expenses covered by the crown. He then contacted Byron, a merchant he had previously met, and hired him to provide food for all participants upon their arrival in the capital. When Noah reviewed the expenses, he noticed that Byron was charging far less than expected and confronted him about it. Byron admitted that the reduced cost was a gesture of gratitude toward the 13th prince. Noah rejected the explanation, stating that merchants never acted without motive, and demanded the truth. Byron confessed that a separate examination was being held to recruit palace staff, and he wished for one of his girls to secure a position. Noah immediately understood the implication. Having someone inside the palace would grant Byron early access to sensitive information, which could be leveraged for profit. Noah stated that he had no objection and promised to put in a favorable word with the judges. Overwhelmed with gratitude and impressed by Noah's insight, Byron knelt and pledged his loyalty, requesting permission to operate his business under Noah's crest. Noah agreed, but made it clear that betrayal would not be tolerated under any circumstances. Later that day, while returning to the palace in his carriage, Noah sat in silence, intently reviewing his status window. He reflected on how one of his attributes had increased after recruiting Byron, only to be jolted moments later by an unexpected change. To his shock, one of his stats had decreased. After a brief but careful analysis, Noah concluded that the cause could only be trouble in Almeria, the city under his direct governance, and the very reason he had been awarded his first S rank in the first place. Recognizing the urgency of the situation, Noah immediately instructed Zoe to have the driver change course and head straight for the king's palace. He believed the matter could not afford even a moment's delay. Upon meeting the king, Noah reported that something was seriously amiss in Almeria. His concern was quickly validated when one of the king's advisors confirmed that a small-scale rebellion had broken out in the region. The king then asked whether Noah intended to suppress the rebellion himself. Noah declined, explaining that he lacked real battlefield experience. Even if he were to emerge victorious, he feared that unnecessary casualties would be inevitable. Instead, he requested that one of his elder brothers lead the campaign, assuring the king that he would provide support in any way possible. Noah specifically recommended his brother Henry, believing him to be the most suitable for the task. The king agreed and ordered that Henry be summoned at once. Later, as Noah and Henry traveled together toward the affected region, their convoy was ambushed by rebels wielding water magic. Leviathan detected the enemy's presence first, allowing Noah to react without hesitation. He swiftly subdued the attackers, ensuring they were incapacitated but left alive for interrogation. From them, Noah learned that the core of the rebellion consisted of a large contingent of cavalry. Noah immediately recognized a strategic weakness in this revelation. Almeria possessed very few war horses, and supplies of horse feed were already limited. With this advantage in mind, he acted the very next day. Noah ordered Byron to purchase every available supply of horse feed throughout Almeria. Such a move would inevitably incite panic among the rebels, as their cavalry would soon find itself unable to sustain its mounts. With citizens owning few horses of their own, the rebels would have no viable means to replenish their dwindling resources. The 5th episode opens with Noah kneeling before the king near a fountain within the palace grounds. The king informs him that the captured prisoners have finally revealed the truth. According to their confession, they had been sent specifically to target Noah and intended to use him as a bargaining chip. The king remarks that what truly impressed him was not merely this revelation, but the fact that Noah had managed to overpower all the guards on his own and successfully detain each of them for questioning. However, the king adds that it is unfortunate how little information the prisoners actually possessed. Beyond their mission to capture Noah, they knew nothing of the larger rebel organization behind the plot. The conversation then shifts to Noah's recent decision to cut off the supply of horse feed in Almeria. The king praises this choice, stating that it was both strategic and humane. He explains that while cutting human rations would have been a more direct way to cripple the rebels' forces, it would inevitably have endangered innocent lives. Desperate for food, the rebels' first targets would have been the homes of ordinary Almerian citizens. Noah finds himself once again impressed by the king's insight, especially given that the plan has not yet been fully carried out. Byron has only just been assigned to secure the horse feed supply, yet the information has already reached the throne. The speed at which such details travel strikes Noah as almost ominous, though he keeps his unease to himself and does not voice it before the king. Concluding that Noah has demonstrated exceptional intelligence, loyalty, and capability, the king decides he must be rewarded. As a mark of royal favor, Noah is granted permission to bear a sword engraved with his crest, the crest of the 13th prince. In an empire that prides itself on martial prowess, such an honor carries immense weight. Using a sword insignia without explicit permission is considered a capital offense, punishable by death. Noah expresses his gratitude for the honor bestowed upon him and respectfully takes his leave. With the audience concluded, he departs to meet Byron, intending to receive an update on the situation surrounding the horse feed in Almeria. Byron reports to Noah that he has gathered all the intelligence necessary to carry out their plan. He explains that the operation will be relatively easy, feasible, and highly effective, and he confirms that this approach is indeed the best course of action against the rebellion. However, Byron cautions the prince that the rebellion's leader is Carfin, a tenacious man who will not surrender easily. While the strategy may cripple the rebels, Byron stresses that their plans will never be fully undone unless Carfin himself is eliminated. This warning prompts Noah to consider an alternative strategy, but his thoughts are interrupted by the unexpected arrival of one of his maids, someone who has no reason to be involved in matters of warfare. She apologizes for the intrusion and urgently informs him that a critical situation requires his immediate attention. A soldier, gravely wounded, has arrived at the gate and is demanding an audience with the 13th prince. Judging the severity of the situation, Noah agrees to see him and heads to the gate alongside Byron and the maid. There, they find a soldier from Almeria, who has come to report that rebellion has broken out in Noah's fief. Although this information is not new to Noah, he recognizes the danger the soldier must have faced to deliver the message. To ensure the man's sacrifice does not feel meaningless, Noah reacts as though he has learned something important. He orders the maid to tend to the soldier's wounds and grants him a reward of 1,000 reen. Turning to Byron, Noah remarks that while the information itself may lack value, the soldier's loyalty is unquestionable, and that alone makes him deserving of the reward. Later that evening, as the sun sets and Noah sits alone in his chambers reading, Zoe arrives with trembling steps and a pale expression. Noah immediately notices her distress and asks what is wrong. She extends her hands to reveal a small bottle filled with liquid and confesses that a suspicious man has ordered her to mix the poison into Noah's drink. The plan, she explains, is to incapacitate him so that he can be captured. She adds that refusal would mean her death. Noah calmly asks why she did not simply comply with the order. Zoe replies that she cannot bring herself to betray him, as he is the one who saved her mother and her village. Moved by her loyalty, Noah writes her a check as a reward for her devotion to the crown. Then, to her shock, he instructs her to proceed with the plan anyway. She is to give him the poison and hand him over to the rebels. Noah explains that this will allow him to infiltrate their ranks and extract critical information about their leader, even if it means risking his own life. Zoe follows the prince's orders, and Noah later regains consciousness inside a carriage. Anticipating such a situation, he has already reduced the size of his sword and concealed it, preventing the rebels from confiscating it. To his advantage, they have also overlooked his ring. Using his magical relics, Noah frees himself and reveals his presence. He quickly realizes his captors are nothing more than expendable lackeys, unlikely to possess any meaningful knowledge of the rebellion. Disappointed but decisive, he dispatches them one by one, wielding his sword with precision, skillfully evading and parrying their attacks. Within moments, every rebel lies defeated. Shortly afterward, Zoe arrives with a large contingent of guards, eager to assist in any way possible. By then, the fighting is already over, and the guards move in to secure and imprison the fallen rebels. During the cleanup, one guard discovers a sword that appears highly suspicious. Noah orders him to step back and examines it himself. He determines that the weapon is cursed and that it harbors deep hatred for the one who cursed it. That individual, Noah realizes, is none other than Carfin, the leader of the rebellion. Drawing upon the power of his Leviathan and the cursed sword, Noah pinpoints Carfin's location. From an unfathomable distance, he unleashes a powerful projectile of magic that strikes Carfin directly in the head, ending the rebellion at its source. Although Noah does not publicly announce Carfin's death, the following day the king congratulates him on eliminating the rebel leader. Noah is once again taken aback by how swiftly the king has learned the event. The means by which such information reaches the throne remains a mystery to him. In the aftermath of Carfin's fall, it takes little time for Noah's brother to track down and imprison the remaining rebels, bringing the uprising to a definitive end. Soon afterward, a royal court is convened, with the king himself presiding as judge to determine the fate of those who dare to rebel against the crown. The king declares that the prisoners are to be drawn and quartered, a sentence that entails mutilation followed by execution as punishment for high treason. The assembled court regards his verdict as entirely appropriate for criminals who challenge the authority of the high crown. Noah, however, steps forward as the sole voice of dissent. He advises the king that the law clearly stipulates a swift death as sufficient punishment for treason. He further argues that allowing a motion to override established law undermines the authority of the crown and invites future defiance. When the king considers Noah's reasoning, he is unable to find fault in it. Impressed by Noah's wisdom and courage in standing before him, the king reflects that while any of his sons might have challenged him, none would have done so for the sake of justice itself. Moved by this realization, the king bestows upon Noah the title of the Wise, declaring that from that day forward, he shall be known throughout the kingdom as Noah the Wise. Noah expresses his gratitude, and once the formal proceedings conclude, he is summoned again to speak privately with the king. During their discussion, the king inquires about Noah's plan for judging the annual night selection examination. In response, Noah demonstrates that his ring can repel any attack directed at him. He explains that, in the first round, he intends to evaluate the knight's aptitude by measuring how close their attacks can come to him before being deflected. The king remarks that the method is both effective and dangerous. Noah acknowledges the risk and states that he is fully prepared to accept any consequences that may arise. As the day draws to a close, the king withdraws to a secluded chamber alongside his confidant, the prime minister. There, he reflects on an ancient legend that warns the true seal of the Leviathan must never be broken. Yet, despite the warning, the king confides a suspicion that if Noah were the one to break it, the outcome might be extraordinarily beneficial for the kingdom. The 5th episode opens with the night selection exam already underway. It is described as the Empire's largest annual examination, attracting participants from every corner of the realm, all hoping to rise suddenly in status and enter higher society. The kingdom hosting the event is identified as the Mirror's Kingdom, an ancient name meaning warrior. The narration explains that the nation takes immense pride in producing some of the world's finest fighters and is globally renowned for maintaining one of the strongest militaries in history. Because of this reputation, the event holds tremendous importance. It allows the Empire to recruit talented warriors regardless of their social background, offering commoners a chance at advancement while simultaneously strengthening the kingdom's military ranks. This year's exam proves especially unusual because it is personally judged by the 13th prince, Noah. The judging method is unconventional. He sits calmly at the center of the stage, sipping tea while contenders approach one by one and attempt to strike him with their full strength. Each attack, however, is effortlessly stopped by a magical shield generated from Noah's ring before the challengers can even get close. One participant even attempts fire magic, yet the result remains unchanged. Noah does not flinch and emerges completely unscathed. As sunset approaches, Noah begins to suspect that no truly worthy candidate will appear that day. Just then, a female knight steps forward for her trial. Drawing her sword, she thrusts forward with all her strength. The shield rises to protect Noah as usual, but for the first time, her attack pierces through it, accidentally injuring him. His guards immediately seize her, assuming malicious intent. After all, they argue that even if she had been instructed to attack, a knight should possess enough control to halt once the shield breaks. Spectators begin whispering that severe punishment is inevitable and that her career may already be over. Despite the injury, Noah orders the guards to release her. He states that he believes the incident is an honest mistake. He further explains that he has never established a fixed criterion for passing the exam. However, since she is the only candidate to penetrate his defenses completely, he declares that she passes with distinction. After the day's event concludes, Noah summons her to his office. There, she formally introduces herself as Shirley Grants, still unable to accept that she will face no punishment. She repeatedly asks what sentence awaits her, but Noah calmly reiterates that none will be given. On the contrary, he admits that he is impressed by her aptitude as a knight. Curious, he asks her to repeat the same thrust attack. Though reluctant, she complies. This time, however, the shield easily withstands a strike. Noah clarifies that earlier he had intentionally used a weaker shield formed with minimal magic to identify exceptional talent. Had he wished, he could have blocked the attack effortlessly. Realizing this, Shirley understands that Noah is far from an ordinary prince. Noah then appoints her as his personal knight, explaining that her fierce dedication earns her the opportunity to rise in rank, and that loyalty is the quality he values above all else. Their discussion is interrupted when a doctor arrives to treat Noah's wound. While the physician works skillfully, Shirley watches with fascination. Noticing her curiosity, Noah asks what interests her. She explains that her home village is extremely poor, with most residents illiterate, and she has never seen wounds treated in such a refined manner. The doctor confirms that this situation is common in impoverished regions where access to proper healthcare and education is limited. After hearing this, Noah assigns Shirley her first task. She is to gather the most diligent and intelligent individuals from her village and bring them to the city. The doctor will train them as apprentices, so they can eventually provide medical care back home. The gesture deeply moves Shirley, who nearly breaks into tears as she realizes how dramatically this could improve her village's future. The following morning, Shirley awakens in the palace and is greeted by Zoe, who asks how she slept. Shirley replies that although the room is luxurious, it still feels unfamiliar, making restful sleep difficult. Nearby, palace maids begin gossiping about whom Prince Noah might eventually marry. Zoe attempts to ground them in reality, pointing out that the prince is still quite young. The others disagree, arguing that royalty often marry early and that Noah already carries himself with striking maturity. They notice Zoe blushing while speaking about him and tease her about harboring feelings for Prince. Though she neither confirms nor outright denies it, the teasing continues. Observing all this, Shirley becomes struck by how deeply respected Noah is and how strong the loyalty toward him appears. The scene shifts to Noah's office, where Shirley stands beside him as a knight delivers the finalized report on the exam. Noah reviews and signs it before returning it. The knight thanks him for conducting the exam so effectively, noting that it enabled the military to recruit excellent candidates. Noah then asks Shirley to escort the knight out. Outside, she bows respectfully, but the senior knight tells her such humility is no longer necessary. She is now a knight herself and should carry appropriate pride. Nevertheless, he advises her to place unwavering trust in Noah, insisting that loyalty to him is a decision she will never regret. Later that evening, during a formal gathering hosted by Noah, Zoe presents him with a suspicious letter delivered by an unknown messenger who vanished immediately afterward. Concerned it might contain important intelligence, she prioritizes informing Noah directly. As he prepares to open it, both Zoe and Shirley warn that it could be a trap. Even Noah's sentient sword, Leviathan, appears alert. Noah proceeds anyway. The letter reveals that remnants of the Almerian rebels remain active and may attempt another uprising. Noah quickly deduces that the informant is likely the same individual who previously warned him, despite the fact that he had already been aware of the rebellion. While Zoe and Shirley praise the informant's loyalty, Noah views the situation more pragmatically. He explains that an untrained spy is likely to be captured eventually, turning into a liability rather than an asset. Realizing his brother Henry is nearby, Noah assigns him to suppress the rebels. Soon afterward, confirmation arrives that the rebels have been defeated, though the informant was captured beforehand and reportedly tortured into unconsciousness. Noah immediately orders Zoe to send word to Almeria that this man's loyalty is invaluable to the crown and that every possible resource must be used to save him. Shirley recognizes that, strategically, the informant may possess little useful intelligence, yet Noah still prioritizes his rescue. She begins to see him as a strict yet compassionate leader, someone she feels increasingly determined to serve faithfully. The next day, Noah visits Cobalt Street in search of rare artwork. A shopkeeper presents him with a glass masterpiece by the artist Lindsay, explaining that only 2 such pieces exist worldwide. Impressed, Noah offers over 10,000 reins for it, delighting the seller. Their transaction is interrupted when Oscar arrives, having intended to purchase the same piece, so he could own both of Lindsay's finest works. Rather than simply handing it over, Noah shatters the glass artwork on the spot. Though it seems wasteful, he explains that reducing the number of existing pieces increases the value of Oscar's remaining one, effectively turning the destruction into a gift. Oscar appreciates the gesture, and the shopkeeper still receives full payment. The episode concludes with Shirley reflecting on how, in the short time she has served Noah, he has consistently demonstrated capability, foresight, and decisive leadership. She remarks that life under the 13th Prince has already been filled with remarkable experiences, each revealing his strategic mind. Noah reiterates that loyalty from his people matters to him above everything else. In response, Shirley vows to follow him for the rest of her life, firmly committing herself to his service. The 6th episode begins with Noah enjoying his meal over a grand table alone, with his maidens present in the room to serve him should he need anything. He is now 12 years old, and since it is his 12th birthday, he is reportedly receiving many gifts from the people he has served as a prince. It is noted that the use of the word serve is more accurate than rule in this case, as Noah is described as quite popular throughout the empire for consistently putting his people before himself. One of the maidens reportedly cannot help but gaze outside in awe at the massive number of people who had traveled long distances just to present gifts to Prince Noah. Noah explains to her that the process naturally takes time because he cannot simply accept a gift without scrutiny, since it could potentially contain poison or anything else intended to harm royalty. He adds that it is therefore essential to obtain a complete background history of anyone from whom he is receiving a gift. Zoe clarifies that, on the previous occasion, the process had taken nearly a week due to the overwhelming number of people wishing to offer him gifts. This situation is presented as evidence that Noah is considered a worthy prince, and a highly popular one as well. He is also said to have gained additional fame as a man who has mastered the cursed sword Leviathan. He then proceeds to his daily duties at the Ministry of Military Affairs, where he now serves in ministerial capacity, and where Prince Henry and General Rice are reportedly waiting for him. They inform Noah about the conditions in the south, particularly regarding an ongoing rebellion. General Rice is said to be scheduled for dispatch with a large number of soldiers in order to suppress the rebellion swiftly while minimizing casualties. Noah asks the general how many soldiers he will be taking with him truly to the battlefield, a question that reportedly makes the general visibly uneasy, though he attempts to conceal it. Prince Henry then asks Noah what he means by truly. Noah explains that it is a common corruption tactic among generals to register more soldiers than are actually deployed to the battlefield, allowing him to secure excess expedition funds that often end up in the general's personal possession. Upon realizing that his scheme has been exposed, the general reportedly falls to his knees in apology, while Prince Henry reacts with visible fury. Noah, however, does not treat the matter as a grave sin, and simply instructs the general to provide the accurate number of soldiers he intends to deploy. He further states that if additional funding is genuinely required for the troops, he would willingly authorize the necessary amount. Later that day, Noah is reported to be heading out in his carriage with Henry, who asks him about the battlefield, noting that Noah has no experience whatsoever in actual combat situations. Henry reportedly explains that since Noah excels at nearly every other aspect of princely duty, it is about time he gained some battlefield experience as well. Noah reflects on how princes are usually sent to the battlefield much later in life, given their importance to the imperial crown. However, he acknowledges that there are exceptional circumstances in which a prince may be summoned earlier if the imperial crown specifically demands it. Prince Henry reassures Noah that he will be fine, reportedly pointing out that Noah has already mastered the Leviathan sword, and that such participation would likely earn him greater recognition among the people. Despite this clear encouragement, Noah is said to remain unenthusiastic about joining the battlefield. He informs his brother Henry that he would depart immediately if the imperial crown formally requires it. However, it is indicated that his reluctance stems from a different concern. Not fear the enemy, but fear betrayal. Noah reflects privately that many princes born into the imperial family die in infancy. Officially, these deaths are often attributed to sickness or rare diseases, but he believes the truth is frequently different. He reportedly considers that princes and princesses are often eliminated by others within the imperial court who seek power for themselves or act out of jealousy. In his view, the battlefield provides an ideal opportunity to stage such a death while attributing it to enemy forces. Consequently, Noah does not wish to risk his life in that manner, and instead intends to continue serving the people for as long as possible. Soon, their carriages are interrupted by several slave children who throw themselves in front of them, prompting the drivers to stop immediately. A herd of strong elder men then approaches, intending to take the children back, as they are clearly slaves. Noah steps out of the carriage and asks the men whether they possess valid licenses to conduct slave trading. Slave trading is indeed legal in these times, but it is governed by strict rules and regulations meant to ensure a certain degree of safety for the slaves themselves. One such requirement is holding a proper slave trader license, which these men clearly lack. The men reportedly threaten Noah, warning that they will confront him if he continues interfering, as they do not realize he is a prince. Noah accepts the challenge and, using his cursed Leviathan sword, reportedly subdues them immediately. However, one final trader emerges from an alleyway and, rather than resorting to violence, calmly states that he knows who Noah is. He further claims that the slave traders, including himself, are working directly under the command of the first prince. This revelation reportedly unsettles Noah momentarily. Not only has this man recognized him up close, but he has also publicly declared an association with the first prince. Noah understands that if he acts against him, it may appear to the public that he is directly opposing the first prince, potentially fueling damaging rumors about the imperial crown. Conversely, letting them go would imply that the first prince is involved in illegal activities. Noah therefore announces that these men are falsely associating themselves with the crown and orders them taken into custody, stating that if there is any truth to their claims, time will reveal it. Not long afterward, Noah is reportedly having dinner with Henry when he receives a message from Dylan, delivered on behalf of the first prince. The message states that the slave traders were not connected to the first prince, and that, although a court proceeding had been planned, they allegedly killed themselves in jail. Noah relays this message to Henry. However, Noah internally concludes that the traders were indeed connected to the first prince, and that they were eliminated to erase any evidence of that association. Prince Henry reportedly admits that this interpretation is true. Although he claims he had no involvement in the first prince's illegal activities, he also acknowledges that he did nothing to stop them and confesses that he feels internally relieved. Noah speculates that although Gilbert is the first prince, he cannot inherit the throne because he is the son of a concubine. Noah reasons that this likely causes frustration and may explain the prince's illegal activities within the kingdom. Their discussion then ends, after which Noah reportedly visits the children he rescued from the illegal slave traders. As expected, they have nowhere to go, so Noah decides to accept them into his palace, on the condition that they remain loyal. The children are described as kind and grateful before eventually going to bed. The following day, Evelyn, the head maid, reportedly meets Noah to inform him that all the gifts from the people have been successfully received and that no incidents have occurred. Noah is said to be so impressed with Evelyn that he appoints her as an administrator in his fief, Almeria. Evelyn reportedly struggles to believe this, as she has always served as a maid. While a promotion would be significant for her, it would also mean she would no longer serve Noah directly. She expresses her desire to serve him forever, and initially shows no interest in the promotion. Noah explains that she will still be working for him, and that this fundamental relationship will not change. He adds that if she performs well as an administrator, it will demonstrate to everyone that he is an excellent judge of character and that his decisions are usually sound. For this reason, he insists she accept the administrative role in Almeria and work diligently on his behalf. Evelyn reportedly becomes very happy upon hearing this explanation and ultimately accepts her new position. Noah is soon reportedly summoned before the imperial king and questioned about his involvement in the matter concerning the illegal slave traders. Apparently, the first prince has already informed the king about the situation himself. By confessing it personally, he has positioned himself as innocent, claiming he was unaware that the slave trading operation was illegal. The king reportedly considers the first prince completely innocent and notes that since the traders were captured after Noah publicly announced they had no association with the first prince, his honor was preserved. Noah replies that he had no intention of safeguarding the first prince's honor and that his sole objective was simply to capture the culprits. The king jokingly remarks that, had he been in Noah's place, he might have been defeated and killed while still debating whether to reveal his identity. The prime minister, standing beside him, states that such an action would have been punishable by death. Noah, who is described as being very well versed in imperial law, corrects the prime minister, explaining that if the king has not officially identified himself and the culprit is unaware of the victim's identity, that particular law would not apply. Noah reportedly realizes the gravity of his statement immediately after speaking, recognizing that openly correcting the prime minister could easily be interpreted as an insult. He begins to consider whether apologizing would be the wisest course of action, but before he can do so, the king informs the prime minister that he has won their bet. It becomes clear that this exchange was a deliberate test arranged by both the king and the prime minister to assess how knowledgeable Noah is regarding imperial law. The king then immediately announces that Noah will serve as the new minister of justice. Later that day, Noah reportedly reflects on the promotion, wondering why answering a single question correctly has led to such an appointment. He notes internally that he has always been bold when dealing with serious matters. The episode concludes with Noah officially appointed as Minister of Justice, though he cannot shake the feeling that he may be being used as a pawn in a much larger political game. The 7th episode opened with Noah arriving at the Ministry of Justice in his carriage. A formally arranged reception awaited him. Rows of officials stood aligned outside the building and bowed respectfully as the prince stepped out, acknowledging him as the empire's wise new minister. Once inside, Noah was introduced to his new second-in-command, a man named Viney. The young official formally introduced himself and explained that he would serve as Vice Minister of Justice alongside Noah. Noah, known for quickly assessing people, immediately noted Viney's youth and concluded that although talented, he was still rising in rank and had yet to fully establish his reputation. Since the ministerial role was new to him, Noah asked what responsibilities the position actually entailed. Viney explained that the coordination of courthouses across the empire would now fall under Noah's authority. Furthermore, in the event of rebellion or internal unrest, any captured culprits were to be judged directly by Noah rather than by ordinary imperial judges. Hearing this, Noah clearly grasped the gravity of his office, particularly in situations involving internal insurrection. Without hesitation, Noah then asked Viney how much he received in bribes each year. The blunt question visibly startled the young vice minister, who had not expected such directness. His first instinct was to deny everything outright. However, Noah's social awareness made it obvious that he did not believe the denial. Calmly, he assured Viney that the conversation would remain confidential and that no repercussions would follow if he spoke honestly. Reassured, Viney admitted that he accepted a few hundred reins annually in bribes, though only in minor disputes where either outcome could be justified. He stressed that he never accepted bribes in murder cases, reasoning that such interference could provoke retaliation from wrong parties, a risk he was unwilling to take. After listening, Noah wrote Viney a check for 5,000 reins and instructed him to stop accepting bribes altogether. Surprisingly, Viney declined the money. He stated that he was already deeply impressed by Prince Noah's integrity and promised to abandon the practice voluntarily. Despite this pledge, Noah remained slightly skeptical. While Viney's words sounded sincere, the prince was not yet fully convinced that the young vice minister's habits would change so easily. Later that night, to celebrate Prince Noah's new position as Prince Minister of Justice, his brother, Prince Oscar, arranges a grand dinner party for him. Noah still cannot believe himself to be in this position, so he asks Oscar what the reason could be for him becoming the second Prince Minister after his brother Henry. Oscar gives a rather laid-back answer, saying he thinks there's not much more to aside from the king adoring the young Prince Noah. Noah, being thoughtful, reflects that it could simply be the king's personal bias, which is certainly a possibility. However, he proposes a different theory to Oscar. Noah reminds him that many years ago the empire nearly collapses because of the crown prince system. According to that system, the eldest son of the king is destined to become king at some point, but this leaves the remaining princes without real authority or regional control, which leads to instability. That is why the empire now gives different princes jurisdiction over different regions, ensuring they all play a role in governing the empire. Noah believes these positions are merely tests meant to measure each prince's aptitude for eventually becoming king. This revelation startles Prince Oscar, who rises in amusement, realizing it would mean the king is considering Noah, along with Henry, as a potential successor. Almost immediately after this realization, one of Oscar's informants arrives and reports that the king intends to appoint Oscar as the next Prince Minister of the Ministry of Finance. Oscar excitedly tells Noah this confirms his theory. The king is assessing the brothers' capabilities to determine who best fits the throne. He adds that Noah will soon be formally established in his ministerial role as well. Noah, however, does not receive the news enthusiastically, not because of increased competition, but because he believes the king is alienating Crown Prince Albert. Despite being Crown Prince, Albert holds no official ministerial position and has remained Crown Prince for far too long. Noah concludes that appointing the younger brothers as ministers seems like the king is sending Albert a clear, harsh message that he will never become king. Meanwhile, the Knights of the Empire raid a group of men and arrest 167 people. The Prime Minister informs the King of the Empire that, according to the intelligence gathered, these people are acting under Prince Albert's orders and are attempting to apprehend or kill the king so they can make Prince Albert the new ruler of the empire. The king reflects that it seems Prince Albert can no longer wait to reign. However, he considers both Albert and Gilbert unworthy of the crown. The individuals he is actually considering are Noah, Oscar, and Henry, believing anyone would suffice as long as they can overcome the trials he intends to place before them. As Minister of Justice, news of the attempted attack on the king reaches Noah, making it his responsibility to order punishment and investigate the matter. After only a brief review of the situation, Noah understands what is truly happening. All the captured and accused men are close allies of Albert, which makes it clear that Albert wishes to become king as quickly as possible, especially now that 3 of his brothers serve as prince ministers. Noah finds himself in a difficult position regarding the decision. According to imperial law, insurrection is never to be forgiven, whether led by royalty or a commoner. This would mean Prince Albert should be cut from the waist as punishment for attempting to overthrow the king. However, Noah recognizes that such an action would cause a major scandal across the empire and lead to political instability, particularly since, although the captive men are associated with Albert, there is no concrete evidence directly linking him to the plot. That alone would give many people reason to protest. Not long afterward, Noah is summoned to the king's chambers, where he announces a punishment for the captured people while deliberately excluding Albert from the discussion. He declares that the leader of the rebels should be held fully accountable for organizing the uprising and should have his body sliced down the middle from the waist, while the remaining followers are to be executed. The king expresses his approval of Noah's reasoning, stating that he understands why taking action directly against Albert will be harmful for the empire, and he tells Noah that he continues to have high hopes for his decision-making abilities. After his meeting with the king, Noah heads back to his palace, only to discover that the 2 front guards have been brutally killed. However, one of them, drawing his last breath, informs the prince that the intruders are still inside. Noah rushes in without hesitation, intending to deal with the enemies swiftly, and he succeeds. He subdues them and ensures they do not commit suicide, so they can later be questioned. Viney reports that the remaining insurgents are either killed or have taken their own lives, preventing them from being captured. Noah realizes these men belong to Albert and concludes that Albert clearly wants more power in the empire. He understands that Albert is aware the empire cannot easily punish him, so he will likely continue these attacks until his demands are met. For the time being, Noah decides he needs an excuse to avoid leading the investigation toward Albert. He deliberately injures himself and officially claims a wound is inflicted by the intruders, allowing him to be executed without an investigation that might implicate Albert. The next morning, Noah meets the king, who is evidently aware of what Noah has done to protect Albert, but acts oblivious and asks whether the intruders must have been highly capable to injure him. Noah briefly thinks the king knows everything, yet chooses to pretend otherwise. Nevertheless, he plays along with the official version and claims his own carelessness allows the weaker foes to land a blow. The king then walks with Noah and speaks about the fragility of the situation regarding the selection of an heir. Noah proposes a solution to reduce Albert's aggression toward the empire, granting the role of Prince Prime Minister. In this arrangement, Oscar, Henry, and Noah will report directly to Albert, satisfying his desire for authority without making him emperor. The king initially reacts with anger and does not consider it a good idea. However, instead of openly lashing out, he calmly remarks that Noah's injury has not fully healed and suggests it's affecting his judgment, then begins to walk away. Noah stops him and clarifies that although Oscar, Henry, and he would formally report to Albert, they would retain the option to bypass him whenever necessary. This would ensure the emperor remains directly informed about the kingdom's affairs, while allowing Albert to maintain an illusion of power. This reasoning strikes the king as convincing, and he ultimately agrees to proceed with the proposal. The 8th episode begins with Noah being taken into a new secret chamber of the king, where he comes across a strange artifact concealed in a box. After opening the small box, he discovers a ring that clearly has a great deal of magical power emanating from it. The danger does not drive the brave Noah away. Instead, it only intrigues him. Without a second thought, Noah puts the ring on his finger, hoping to tame whatever power it has to offer. However, the ring proves to be like Leviathan, Instead of simply bowing to anyone who puts it on their finger, it wants to choose a proper master to serve. Noah immediately recognizes that the ring has a will of its own and that its respect must be earned if he is to tame its powers. He takes out his Leviathan and engages in battle to emerge victorious against the ring. The king is impressed with Noah, seeing how he is able to tame a magical item so strong. The name of the ring is Luthier, and it has not allowed itself to be worn by anyone before this in front of the king. The king continues to be impressed with Noah and, despite his age, is clearly considering him as a potential heir to the throne. The king then advises Noah to take his new weapon out for a spin. He offers to arrange a few targets for the young prince, but Noah declines. He has a smile on his face that gives away that he has something better in mind to test the power of his newly equipped weapon. The king and Noah go outside to test a new weapon, which holds the power of fire within it. Noah uses his new weapon and, to the king's surprise, directs the attack right at himself. However, he simultaneously defends against the attack with the power of his Leviathan. This allows Noah to gauge the strength of his two weapons. He concludes that Leviathan is a little stronger than his newly equipped weapon. However, that does not mean its fire attribute will be useless. The king witnesses the excellence of control Noah demonstrates over his new weapon and officially tells him that Luthier is his to keep. The next day, Noah is summoned to advise the king on a serious matter. As someone known as the Wise Prince, his opinion has become invaluable to the king. That is no small feat, considering the king himself has the ability to think on his feet faster than most people in the kingdom. The matter involves a nephew of the emperor. The arrogant young man has made a reputation for ruling his domain with tyranny instead of empathy. Now, he has murdered a random man while drunk. His father, however, does not wish for his son to suffer the cruel fate of the law. Noah, being a very just prince, states that there are no laws that would grant the nephew an escape. The king informs Noah that the empire has been offered a staggering amount of 30,000 reins as punishment for the son's crime. He tells Noah to consider this offer, as the government is always low on funds that can be used for the prosperity of the empire. The king proposes that they should consider revising their law and allow financial compensation to serve as a proper punishment instead of the culprit's life being taken. Noah sees the appeal of such a system, but ultimately objects to the proposal. He explains that if such a law would be enforced, the wealthy would be able to pay off any crimes they commit and get away with it, whereas the unfortunate would have to suffer severe consequences. This could potentially set the empire up to face rebellion. Noah proposes that while it may be true they need funds, there must be other ways to acquire them rather than enforcing an unjust law like this. The king admits a flaw in his proposal and agrees with Noah. As a reward for correcting him, the king offers Noah an honorary position as his advisor. This sparks an idea in the young prince. He proposes that people should be given an opportunity to become honorary knights under the empire by paying a certain amount to the government. Noah reasons that there are many people who have more money than they know what to do with. Such people desire honor more than wealth and would waste no time in accepting an offer like this. The king is once again impressed and praises Noah for his proposal, just as he's been doing for the past 7 episodes. The king then brings his son Oscar, and Noah takes his leave. As he heads toward the carriage, he notices that some of the Empire's scientists are fascinated by the hole he tore open in the ground with his weapons. One of them is led astray by curiosity and ends up falling into it as well. Noah provides a large sum of money for the man's recovery and goes on his way. Inside his carriage, Noah realizes that he can have Leviathan and Luthier fight each other in the form of Pokemon-like creatures. Luthier is especially competitive, but that does not help him much, as Leviathan is the stronger of the two. They fight multiple times, and each time Leviathan emerges victorious. However, after several attempts, Luthier eventually manages to defeat Leviathan once. Noah realizes that as they continue to rage in battle, both weapons are growing stronger, which in turn increases his own stats as their owner. Zoe is particularly impressed by this feat and wonders if Noah can continue getting stronger simply by having his weapons fight against each other. He replies that it is not that simple. According to him, they have leveled up for now only because they were entirely new opponents to each other. Making them continue to fight will not yield any fruitful results. Not much later, Noah's elder brother Henry arrives at the scene to deliver significant news. Henry informs Noah that it is finally time for his very first campaign. The monster's nest has grown, and tradition dictates that a prince's first campaign takes place there. In fact, the entire region is controlled by the imperial military, making it the ideal ground for a future king's inaugural campaign. Henry then hands Noah a box and instructs him to open it. He explains that the number inscribed on the paper inside represents the number of people Noah will need for the expedition. The wise prince opens the box only to discover that there is nothing written except the word 1. This shocks Henry, who is unable to conceal his reaction as it is clearly visible on his face. The implication is unmistakable. Noah alone is more than sufficient for the task. The fact that the young prince requires no assistance stands as a testament to the immense power he holds at such a young age. Later that day, while Noah is in his office, a messenger from the king arrives. Even though it is only a messenger and not the king himself, Noah, being well versed in imperial law, bows in accordance with the rule that a king's messenger must be afforded the same courtesy as the king. The message turns out to be peculiar, as Noah learns that his campaign has been postponed. When he inquires about the sudden change in plans, the messenger explains that the king was particularly fond of the fact that Noah alone would be enough for the campaign. For that reason, the king now intends to assign him a far more difficult task. Rice himself was once a slave of Henry's. However, imperial princes sometimes elevate their slaves to much higher positions. In such cases, the slaves are considered members of the noble family and are regarded as subordinates to the imperial household. These members of the imperial household are held to the highest standards wherever they go. Later that same day, Noah goes to Cobalt Street and visits his regular supplier in hopes of finding more magic-imbued items. To his disappointment, none are available at the shop. Nevertheless, he pays the shopkeeper a generous sum and instructs him to contact Noah first should he come across anything valuable. Noah understands that the seller has a reputation for acquiring rare items, and he does not wish for any to slip by simply because he does not visit frequently. As Noah and his knight leave the shop, they encounter an arrogant man publicly threatening a street vendor. The man's anger stems solely from the shopkeeper's refusal to sell him an item that has already been booked. Noah immediately takes note of the man's brutality and orders him to stop. The arrogant individual turns out to be a member of the first prince's household, just as Rice belongs to Henry's household. According to the law, such a person cannot be charged with any crime other than rebellion. The cocky man makes this clear to Noah, asserting that there is nothing that can be done to apprehend him. However, Noah, being cunning, finds a way to manipulate the law to his advantage. As royalty, the man is required to address the 13th prince while kneeling, yet he speaks to Noah while standing upright as though they are equals. Noah uses his violation as grounds to have him apprehended. He then orders that the man be struck with lashes until he draws his last breath. After issuing the execution order, Noah commands his knight to handcuff him. He intends to present himself before the first prince, Gilbert, in shackles, since he's just ordered the execution of someone from Gilbert's household. Prince Gilbert declares that the arrogant man in the market was merely tarnishing his name and states that it is good Noah has taken care of him. He immediately gives his butler a key so that Noah may be released. As Noah heads home, his knight expresses confusion, unable to understand why he presented himself before Prince Gilbert as a prisoner when he had done nothing wrong and Gilbert appeared indifferent. Noah explains that this interpretation is far from the truth. Although Gilbert may appear nonchalant, he is inwardly furious. Gilbert views Noah as a competitor, and killing someone from his household could be interpreted as an act of internal power struggle. By appearing before him in shackles and offering an apology, Noah makes his intentions clear and prevents further escalation. The following day, another man named Don Orts comes to see Noah. He tells the wise prince that he is deeply impressed with how matters are handled under his authority. Don expresses his desire to serve under Noah in any position available. He appears charismatic and resolute in his request. Noah agrees to accept him. However, as soon as Don leaves the palace, Noah orders his butler Dylan to conduct a thorough investigation into him. It is evident that Noah senses there is more to Don than meets the eye. The 9th episode begins with Noah being prepared for his day by the female maids when Dylan approaches him in visible haste. It is clear that he carries urgent information that cannot be delayed. Dylan reports that his investigation into Noah's new employee, Don Orts, has been completed. He explains that Don's parents work for First Prince and states that it is evident Don has been sent as a spy on the First Prince's behalf, especially since he has deliberately concealed this fact. Noah instructs Dylan not to share this information with anyone for the time being. He explains that, since he is now aware that Don is a spy, he can manipulate the situation and use him accordingly. Dylan then informs Noah that the shopkeeper of Bardsley wishes to contact him, as he has discovered a rare piece of art that may be worthy of the wise prince's attention. Noah decides to visit the shop and discovers the artwork to be a beautiful painting of a girl. As he steps closer to inspect it, he notices that Leviathan reacts strongly and informs him that the painting is cursed. The shopkeeper presents a replica of the exact same painting. With his sharp eyes, Noah easily identifies the difference between the two. The original appears to have matured slightly, as if the girl within it has grown older over time. The shopkeeper explains that this is a unique trait of the cursed painting. It matures with time, unlike the replica, which remains unchanged like any ordinary artwork. Noah senses a suspicious aura emanating from the painting and, without hesitation, draws his sword and slices through canvas before the shopkeeper can stop him. After the painting interacts with Leviathan, something extraordinary occurs. The girl depicted in the painting comes to life and steps out to greet the wise prince. Noah converses with the girl, and she explains that the painter killed her when she was only a child and created the painting using her blood. She expresses gratitude to Noah for releasing her from her cursed existence. Although the shopkeeper cannot understand her language, Noah communicates with her effortlessly. She wishes to repay him for setting her free, and Noah states that the only appropriate repayment is for her to swear loyalty to him. She gratefully pledges her loyalty to the wise prince. The magical girl then demonstrates several extraordinary abilities. First, she showcases transformation by taking the exact shape and form of the shopkeeper, greatly impressing Noah. She then uses the power of Noah's ring to transform into a holographic state. Noah declares himself satisfied with this acquisition and thanks the shopkeeper for discovering such a valuable ally. He states that he is willing to pay whatever price the shopkeeper sets for the artwork, and the deal is concluded. Later, Noah proceeds to his office, where Byron Allen arrives to meet him. Byron brings numerous expensive gifts as a gesture of gratitude. He reports that the girl he sent to serve under the Emperor 6 years ago has risen to the rank of attendant. The girl, named Ada, was personally selected by Noah because he recognized her ability to please the Emperor. This explains Byron's lavish gifts as an expression of thanks. Byron expresses hope that Ada will soon rise to the rank of wife. However, he acknowledges that she must first become a concubine before she can attain such a position, though she can never become empress, as that position has long been occupied. Noah warns Byron to remain vigilant, explaining that every attendant aspires to become a wife of the Emperor and that the competition is ruthless. He describes the palace not as a place for humans, but as a den of hungry wolves. He advises that Ada must be carefully protected at all times if she is to achieve her ambitions and remain safe. Realizing the full political implications, Byron becomes unsettled and returns home immediately to plan his next move. Afterward, Noah hands a letter to Zoe, instructing her to deliver it to his mother, whom he meets only once a year. He intends for his mother to understand that he considers himself Ada's guardian, signaling that she should support Ada's rise within the palace. Such advancement would elevate Byron's status and, in turn, increase Noah's power, as Byron remains loyal to him. Zoe expresses amazement at Noah's strategic thinking. Noah states firmly that politics always take precedence over emotions within the imperial family, adding that those without hunger for power are destined to be devoured. Seemingly at random, Noah asks Zoe about her mother's well-being. She replies that her mother is fine, but mentions that when she closes the palace gate at night, she sometimes feels as though someone is lurking nearby. She admits it may simply be her imagination. Noah instructs her not to share this suspicion with anyone, explaining that he has a plan to determine whether the threat is real. Later that night, Zoe's mother is attacked by a mysterious figure, who is revealed to be Don, the spy recently hired by Noah. However, it is soon disclosed that the woman is not Zoe's real mother, but Huwa in disguise. She remains unharmed, as ordinary physical attacks have no effect on her. Noah speculates that Don believed Zoe's mother had discovered his activities, and therefore attempted to eliminate her. For the time being, Noah instructs Zoe and her mother to leave the palace for their safety. Meanwhile, Noah orders Huwa to monitor Don, only to discover that Don is betrayed and stabbed by the very person who originally hired him. Rather than abandoning him, Noah rescues Don and takes him to a remote house far from the palace. He informs Don that his betrayal proves he has failed in his mission as a spy for Gilbert. Don expresses deep regret, stating that he had no choice and apologizing for betraying Noah. He admits his astonishment at the wise prince's ability to uncover his schemes. Noah decides to grant Don a second chance as a loyal subordinate. Don eagerly accepts, recognizing that he has no future elsewhere. Noah observed that his own status increases after recruiting Don, interpreting this as proof of Don's genuine pledge of loyalty. As a newly devoted subordinate, Don reveals information that deeply unsettles Noah. Noah promptly arranges an audience with the Emperor to report the alarming news. He informs the Emperor that the wine he has been receiving from Prince Gilbert is poisoned. On its own, the wine is harmless, but when consumed alongside Dragon's Claw, it becomes lethal. Since eating Dragon's Claw with the wine is a ritual performed to honor the ancestors alongside the Crown Prince, such a combination will result in both the Emperor's and the Crown Prince's deaths. Because the wine has been consumed safely for some time, no suspicion would naturally fall upon it. The Emperor immediately orders an investigation into Gilbert and confirms that Noah's accusation is entirely accurate. Gilbert has been developing this poison for a long time in order to claim the throne, without anyone suspecting him of murdering the Emperor and the Crown Prince. Despite this revelation, Noah remains uneasy. He struggles to believe that the Emperor would be unaware of such a significant conspiracy, given his awareness of all prior events. The Emperor soon reveals that he has known of Gilbert's scheme for a long time and never intended to fall victim to it. Nevertheless, he commends Noah for uncovering the plot and rewards him with the title of Vice Minister of Military Affairs, while he simultaneously continues to serve as Minister of Law. Additionally, Noah is appointed Governor General of the First Army. The Emperor explains that he fears a potential rebellion led by his own son. In the unfortunate event that such a rebellion occurs, Noah is ordered to seize the capital and secure control of the entire empire for himself.